Hi guys, my name is Kristen and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, I make videos about motherhood and lifestyle stuff, and today we are going to talk about what it's like to be pregnant during a pandemic. So I wanted to share my story and hopefully that will be helpful for those of you that are pregnant right now or were pregnant in 2020. Maybe you could we could have this like bond community together that we went through this crazy experience. So yeah, let's get into it. Alright guys, so this is a video that I've actually been wanting to make for a while now. It's actually one of the main reasons why I decided I wanted to start making videos like this. I wanted to talk about what it is like to be pregnant, or what it was like to be pregnant in 2020 during the pandemic. The reason why I wanted to make this video was for other women that were pregnant to have something to, like a resource, or someone else who was going through something that they were going through, and it was something that I did not have. So when I was going through it in 2020, I didn't have like a video on YouTube that I could watch. That is why I wanted to make one. So because, well, I'll get into it, but I think I'll start from the beginning. So this video is tricky because I've thought a lot about what I want to talk about and what certain things I want to focus on, because I don't want to make a video for you guys that's like 3 hours long. No one wants to watch that. So I'm trying to figure out where to start. So I thought where I would start would be, I found out that I was pregnant in December of 2019, the very end of December, around Christmas time. I was pregnant before a lot of things started changing in the US. It was a very more normal time being pregnant. I was going to doctor's appointments. My husband was coming with me. You know, there were things in the news that things were going on in the world, but nothing to affect us directly yet. And it's kind of crazy because I remember I had a doctor's appointment. I think it was March 11th or 12th, and I was about 15 weeks pregnant. I remember the appointment very specifically because this was around the time where there were cases that were starting to pop up of people having COVID and the coronavirus. People were starting to get it. I just remember that we didn't really know much of anything, and you would go watch the news, they wouldn't really say anything. And at my doctor's office, I remember I went in and my husband was with me, and they were like, "Oh, everything looks great. Did you have any questions?" And it's funny, I remember I shook her hand, the doctor, and from then on, we stopped shaking hands, just in general and as like a social norm. I remember she was like the last person that I shook her hand, and she didn't have a mask. We weren't wearing masks at that point. I remember I asked her about it, and I was like, what's the whole, is there anything that we should be concerned about with this thing, the coronavirus? And she said, oh, there's no evidence right now that women that are pregnant, that it would affect them more negatively than anyone else, or that you're more at risk than anyone else. And that was kind of that. She didn't really say much, and because I don't think they really knew. And so we were just like, okay, and we left. And so we left, and we were like, oh, why don't we just like grab some groceries on the way home? And when we went to the grocery store, it was like a madhouse, like crazy busy, tons of people were there just like grabbing all these things, and we were like, what's going on? And starting to realize that there was talk and rumors there was going to be a shutdown. And at that point, it was starting to get kind of scary. Like we were like, what's really happening? We didn't really know. And so then the next day, actually, everything kind of shut down. My husband and myself, we started working from home remotely, and everything kind of shut down. And so, and from that point on, in terms of pregnancy, things got a little funky. Things really changed. One of the biggest changes that I experienced right away was we got messages and emails from our doctor saying that their policies had changed, that I had to go into my doctor's appointments alone. My husband could no longer be there. So that was like a really big thing, especially since our next big appointment was the anatomy scan, which I was kind of having anxiety about just because it's kind of a really big appointment, and you just want to make sure that everything's okay. And it's kind of it. I was really looking forward to having my husband there for support for that. And also at that ultrasound, you find out the gender. That's a big deal when you're pregnant to be kind of experience part of that. So essentially what happened was our life completely changed. Like everyone's life actually had changed. And so we were watching the news every night, and it was really scary. And it was extra scary being pregnant because you feel very responsible for this little person inside of you, and you don't even know if you're doing the right thing, but you feel like you need to keep them safe. And I just remember it was a really scary time. And I think one thing that I really needed and was like craving was some sort of, I needed information about how it was going to affect people that were pregnant, or someone like myself that was pregnant. What would happen if I got it? What was going to happen when I went into labor? Or was I going to have to give birth to my baby alone? Those were things that were really real. And they weren't just like some sort of like anxiety, weird kind of fear. That was like a legitimate possibility. And so it was scary. And I remember thinking like, man, like, why isn't anybody talking about this on the news? Why isn't anybody talking about it online? I would search for videos on YouTube. I would search groups on Facebook. I saw some people would mention things here and there in different mom groups that I had joined on Facebook, but nothing really, no like concrete information. And it was really hard. And I just remember thinking like, why isn't anybody talking about this? Like, why is this not a big deal? And because it was such a huge deal to us. And I remember actually I started, and it bugged me that wasn't able to get information that was specific for us, our situation. And I remember I messaged like any celebrity, any news anchor, any news person, that I could, like Rachel Maddow, Meghan McCain, people that worked at Huffington Post, people that were on different news networks, The Today Show, Good Morning America. Let me pull up my Instagram because I sent a lot of DMs. So MSNBC, CNN, Women's Health, E! News, The Today Show, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, WMUR, other local officials, things like, I just felt like I didn't understand why nobody was talking about this, and why was nobody talking about how it was going to affect women that were pregnant. People didn't really start talking about it until, like, you'd see it here and there, maybe one sentence, maybe one or two sentences from someone, like a talking head on a cable news show at night that's maybe said a brief thing about people that were pregnant, but that was it. There was no like in-depth, nothing really more than like a maybe a sentence or two about it, until I would say maybe I started seeing more people talking about it maybe to the middle of the summer, maybe like around July. But it took a very, very long time. And I felt very alone in not knowing information. And the only information actually that would be getting was really scary information. So, women that got COVID that were pregnant, you would hear these stories about them being pregnant and then going into a coma, and they would perform a C-section while they were in a coma to have the babies taken out, and they were in a coma for 2 months, and then that's how they had their baby. And that's freaking scary. Stories to hear when you're pregnant. Because you're like, oh my God, like, is that going to happen to me? Like, that sucks. What? And yeah, so, I mean, I think what I wanted to do was I wanted to share my experience, and I'd love to connect to, if you were pregnant in 2020 last year, or for some portion of it. I gave birth to my son the end of August, so I was pregnant all the way until the end of August in 2020. So I was pregnant before the shutdowns of everything due to COVID, and then during. I'd love to hear your experience, but I wanted to just give you talk about what it was like for me. I think that what I wanted, I would search online for people that had given birth and at hospital, like birth stories, that they would talk about what their experiences were like giving birth at a hospital. Did they have to wear masks while they're in labor? Were their husbands allowed or partners allowed to be in the room? Were they allowed to have visitors or not? Were they allowed to have their doula there? If you had COVID, would you be separated from your baby? That was a big fear of mine. Would you be allowed to breastfeed if you had COVID? There's a lot of stuff that was never talked about, and I'm curious if other women, I'm assuming, had a lot of these questions and fears, because it was hard. It was hard not to have a resource, or it made you feel like people didn't really, that it didn't really matter, that it wasn't really important, when it's, and that's hard when it's the most important thing to you that's ever happened to you. And I mean, it was very difficult, I guess, and I think that it's hard, and it's hard to explain, because on one hand, there was a lot of scary moments, and there was a lot of uncertainty and like sadness that happened last year in 2020, but at the same time, there was so much joy and memories that we made, like our family. And so it's hard to, I guess it's hard to explain. It's complicated, I guess, which a lot of stuff is complicated, I guess. So I guess I wanted to just talk about a few of the things that, besides the whole fact that no one was really talking about what it was, what all of us pregnant ladies were, what was going to happen to us. But besides that, we still had to like chug along. And so it's kind of funny, right after the shutdown happened, I was just about 4 months pregnant. And so at that point is when you generally, like 4 or 5, maybe 6 months, but like generally like around 5 months pregnant, or maybe some people at 7 months, I don't know. But you start to stop fitting into your clothes because you start to kind of get your baby bump. And so um, that happened to me. It's tricky because at the same time, at the moment that, or right around the time that I was going to start probably needing to get maternity clothes is when everything shut down. So my clothes stopped fitting me and I couldn't go to the store and buy anything. And so naturally, I went online and had to buy stuff online, but that's tricky. A, because I don't know what maternity clothes are like. I've never tried them on. And also, I don't know if anyone remembers, but ordering stuff online, you didn't know when it was going to come. So it's hard when you're buying maternity clothes because I ordered a lot of clothes that by the time they got to me 2 months later, 6 weeks later, they didn't fit me they didn't fit as I had was too big onto like a next size or phase. So it was crazy, and the clothes were a struggle. And essentially, I found these leggings from H&M that were these like the mama leggings, and I still wear them today because they are literally the most comfortable, amazing leggings I've ever worn in my life, and I'm wearing them right now. And I bought a pair of those. They come in like a pack of two, and I bought those, and I literally wore those every day. And so, luckily, we weren't going anywhere, so it didn't really matter. But it's kind of nice to wear different clothes in general, just for yourself day to day. So, little variety, and so that was a bit of a struggle at the end. I kind of was just wearing like big t-shirts and walking around like Winnie the Pooh. Walking around, with no pants on, and it was crazy. Another thing that I know a lot of people, or I'm sure a lot of people that were pregnant in 2020 that they went through is the whole thing about a baby shower. So obviously we couldn't get together anymore to do a baby shower. Our baby shower was canceled, and we had not sent out invites yet, so that was a plus. We were going to do it in June, and we ended up not being able to do it. And it's funny, I remember conversations with my mom on the phone and I was like, Mom, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. She was like, oh, we'll see. I mean, things could be better by then, and da da da. And I remember these conversations. I remember I was walking around my kitchen and we were talking, and I was like, I don't think so. I don't think so. And, obviously that didn't happen. So what we did instead was we did a shower by mail. My mom got these super cute invites that I loved, and she sent them out. So essentially, we sent out invites for, it was like a shower by mail. So people would send gifts through the mail. We were going to do a sip and see for our baby, which I don't know if that's going to happen either because he's 7 months old now and we still can't do anything. So, but that's essentially what we did. And it was kind of this blessing in disguise that happened where, because of that, the avenue that we took, the shower by mail, that our baby shower gifts kind of trickled in at different times throughout my pregnancy. So every couple days we would get a delivery on our front porch, and it was actually became like the highlight of our day because you're at home, you're bored doing nothing, and we were just working, and we'd be like, oh, we got a package. So it actually turned out to be like a really fun thing for us. So we were always really excited and super grateful for people thinking of us when so much else is going on in everyone's life. So it was just like a really sweet thing that we really appreciated it so much from our friends and family that thought of us during that time. Another big thing that in terms of pregnancy for pregnant ladies was the groceries. So there was no sort of waking up at midnight being like, I'm craving chocolate ice cream and pickles or whatever you see on TV and like the husband going out and buying it because the grocery stores were like ransacked for the beginning and it was very scary. Especially there's something about like when you're pregnant and you feel like you need to be eating specific things and be healthy and you need to be making sure that you're going to be able to provide for this baby to help it grow and my husband would go to the grocery store and there would be no sugar, no flour, no bread, no certain fruits. And I have some pictures I was looking on my phone that my husband had sent me. I can insert those pictures here and you guys can see they're just pictures of the grocery store that he took because it was just so crazy of all the kind of empty shelves. My husband would go grocery shopping for us and he would get what he could find. He would like wipe down all of our groceries, disinfect them, and I mean it was crazy. We did that once a week. You kind of get creative with your cravings. So he would call me and I would say like, oh, try and get, if you can, see if they have any, like, really want like a key lime pie. And he would call me and be like, well, they don't have key lime pie, but they have like some weird obscure thing. And I'd be like, sure. And so I feel like it was kind of this funny thing that we would, because the grocery store was definitely like a different experience. You couldn't get what you wanted when you wanted it. We didn't order food the whole time I was pregnant. We didn't order takeout. We didn't go out to restaurants. We were trying to be super careful. So funny too, thinking back. I think what was tricky about last year being pregnant was the question of how to celebrate something that's so happy in your life when something so terrible is happening in the world. And it's hard because you're so happy, but you don't know how to share that happiness. I think it was also kind of a special experience because my husband was able to be with me every day. All day we were able to like hang out, have lunch together every day, which we never would have been able to do. Essentially for us, the pregnancy became it was sort of this little shining light that was something that we had to look forward to and to hold on to and be excited about and to focus on because it was crazy what was happening in the world and it was really scary a lot of the time. And I think that we were like, oh, we could focus on getting the nursery ready. And it just sort of, even though it was very scary at times, it also was really great for us because it was something that we were so happy about and something that we were really looking forward to. I think one of the things that really helped me last year was I tried to find as much information as I could. So to prepare myself, even the little amount that I could find online of ladies telling their experience of what it was like in the hospital. A lot of unknowns, and there's a lot of unknowns anyway when you're pregnant. So this was just like unknowns to the exponential amount. Which can be kind of hard for someone like me who's can tend to kind of err on the side of being a little bit of a worrier about certain things. So that part of it was tricky. But I think ultimately I talked to my hospital. I called them and talked to the maternity floor and they gave me a ton of information on any like classes we could take online and what it was going to be like in the hospital. My husband was allowed to be there. I did not have to wear a mask when I was like in labor. We couldn't have any visitors. And essentially the nurses all wore masks. But besides that, you would have never known that there was a pandemic going on outside. Our experience was probably as close to normal as it could be. and we were really grateful for that. I think ultimately a lot of my fears and worries never happened, but I think they were valid because in the moment, because I think that it's hard. It was hard, man. If you were pregnant in 2020, I commend you, because it was like mentally hard, because there's just so much going on, and you have so much going on in your life and your body, and everything's changing. And then there's a friggin' pandemic going on, and then everything going on in the world. It was a lot, but I think that it made me a stronger person for sure. Now, as more and more people are telling their stories of what it was like, and now people are getting vaccinated and things are changing, really looking forward to the future, and I have a really good feeling about how things are gonna go. And yeah, I mean, I think that I really wanted to make this video because I wanted to have a video like this when I was pregnant, or have someone to reach out to. So if you are pregnant now, or you were pregnant in 2020 or whenever, reach out to me, send me a message, leave me a comment. I love to talk to you, hear your experience, what it was like for you. I know we were really lucky in our experience, and I know many people have different experiences. They had to give birth alone. You know, they had to wear a mask during labor. You know, there's a lot of stuff that women had to go through that sucked and was hard. And I think it's important for people to hear those stories and, you know, reach out to me. I'd love to hear them. I think it's important to support each other as women. I hope that just hearing my experience, maybe you can laugh too and be like, oh my gosh, I remember that when, you know, I couldn't fit into any of my clothes either. And, you know, I couldn't buy maternity clothes either, or whatever, if you went through that too. All right, guys, so hopefully that was, I made some sort of sense, because I felt like I was just rambling on. But hopefully that if you had been pregnant during 2020, you kind of could identify with some of the things that we had gone through, or that I went through. And definitely leave me a comment. I'd love to connect. And don't forget to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and I will see you in my next video. All right, bye guys. So casually keep diving into concrete, so bittersweet.